A rich woman screams at a black delivery driver to get off her property. But what he does next leaves her speechless, the police stunned, and the internet on fire. It started with 7 simple words that left everyone speechless. "You people don't belong in this neighborhood." That's what Marcus, a 32-year-old black delivery driver, heard as he stepped out of his truck in the middle of a calm, sunny afternoon. The street was lined with freshly trimmed hedges, million-dollar homes, and imported cars glistening in. The driveways. A picture-perfect neighborhood, unless you didn't look the way some people expected you to. Marcus had worked this route for months. Same streets, same houses, same job. Drop off the package, maybe get a smile, maybe not. No. Big deal. But today, something was off the moment he pulled up to house number 2187, a large white mansion with towering columns and a fancy fountain out front. He double-checked the address on his scanner. Yep, right place. Just another package to deliver. No reason to expect what came next. As Marcus walked up the long, curved stone driveway, package in hand, the massive front door burst open like a scene from a movie. A woman, maybe in her late 40s, came storming out. She wore a crisp white designer, blouse, gold bangles stacked on her wrists, and oversized sunglasses that barely hid her glare. Her whole outfit probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. Her voice sliced through the silence like a knife. "What do you think you're doing here?" Marcus stopped in his tracks, confused but still composed. "Just delivering a package, ma'am," he replied, as calmly as he could. But her eyes, filled with suspicion and superiority, didn't soften. They sharpened. "You people are always creeping around here. I don't care what you're delivering. Leave, now." Marcus's heart beat a little faster. Not because he was scared, but because he knew exactly what was happening. He'd heard the stories, seen the viral videos, but he never thought he'd star in one. He took a slow breath and glanced down at his uniform, clearly marked with the company's logo. The same company that served her entire neighborhood. Still, she stood there, arms crossed, blocking the path like he was some kind of threat. "I'm just here to drop this off," Marcus said again, raising the small cardboard box slightly. "This address is on the label." But she didn't even look at it. "I didn't order anything. You're lying. You're probably casing the place. I've seen people like you on the news." Marcus froze. His mind raced. Not in panic, but in calculation. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just reached up and tapped the small camera clipped to his shirt, the same camera he wore every day for protection, just in case things ever went wrong. "Everything's being recorded," he said, steady and respectful, but instead of backing down, she pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. You need to leave before something bad happens," she snapped. Marcus didn't flinch. "Go ahead," he replied. "I'll wait." At this point, a few neighbors had begun peeking through windows. One older man across the street stepped outside and watched from his porch. Marcus stood his ground, the package still in his hand. Still polite, still professional. But inside, he knew. This wasn't just about a delivery anymore. Marcus could have reacted with anger. He had every right to. He had just been insulted, accused, and treated like a criminal for simply doing his job. But instead of shouting or storming off, Marcus did something far more powerful. He stayed calm. "I have a delivery for this address," he said, holding the box slightly forward. "I can leave the package by the door or hand it to you." But the woman, let's call her Ms. Reynolds, wasn't interested in listening. Her body language screamed hostility. She waved her hand dismissively, like Marcus's words were beneath her. "No, I didn't order anything. You're lying. You're trying to trick me." Her voice got louder, her tone sharpened. "You're trespassing. I don't care what you're doing. I'm calling the cops right now." Marcus didn't move. He didn't argue. He simply tapped the small body camera mounted on his shirt, right above his uniform badge. It was something he wore every day, not just for his safety, but because situations like this were becoming more common. Everything was being recorded. The audio, the video, her voice, his, every detail, every insult, every second. "I'm not trespassing," Marcus said firmly but respectfully. "I'm here because someone at this address placed an order. If it wasn't you, maybe someone else in the house did." But Ms. Reynolds didn't care. In her mind, Marcus wasn't a worker. He wasn't a person. He was a threat. Without hesitation, She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Marcus stood still, his posture relaxed, his arms by his side, package in hand, making absolutely sure he looked as non-threatening as possible. He knew how fast situations like this could go wrong. He'd, seen it on the news. He wasn't going to be the next headline. As Ms. Reynolds spoke to the dispatcher, her words were chilling. "There's a suspicious man on my property," she said. "He's refusing to leave. I feel threatened. I'm afraid he's trying to break in." Marcus blinked slowly. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, but at the same time he wasn't surprised. He'd done nothing wrong. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't stepped out of line. But just like that, she was painting a completely different picture, one designed to spark fear, suspicion, and police action. She gave the dispatcher her address. Her voice dropped a little, almost like she was trying to sound like the victim in a suspense movie. Marcus didn't interrupt. He knew better. He kept his hands visible. He kept his camera rolling. He glanced at the name on the package. Ethan Reynolds. Maybe it was her husband. Maybe a son. Either way, someone from this house ordered it. As the call ended, Ms. Reynolds looked at Marcus with cold, triumphant eyes. "The police are on their way," she said. "Let's see what they think about you hanging around here." Marcus nodded. "I'll wait," he said calmly. A car drove by slowly. The neighbors across the street were now clearly watching. One even pulled out a phone and started filming. From his driveway. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It was a performance. One where Marcus was being cast as the villain in someone else's story. But what Ms. Reynolds didn't know was that Marcus had a script of his own. One built on truth, professionalism, and video proof. The scene was set. The roles were clear. And what happened next would flip everything upside down. Minutes later, the peaceful silence of the neighborhood was broken by the sharp wail of sirens. 2 police cruisers rolled up to the mansion, lights flashing, tires crunching on the gravel driveway. Doors swung open and 2 officers stepped out, hands near their belts, eyes focused directly on Marcus. Ms. Reynolds ran toward them, flailing one hand in the air, clutching her phone in the other. "That's him!" she cried, pointing with theatrical urgency. "He refused to leave. He tried to force his way into my house. He was threatening me." Her voice was high-pitched, full of panic, an award-winning performance if fear alone was evidence. She looked at the officers, hoping. Her tears and tone would do the work before they even heard the facts. Marcus stood completely still. He didn't move. He didn't speak until the officers addressed him. One of them, Officer Diaz, approached cautiously. "Sir, can you tell us what's going on here?" Marcus nodded calmly. "Of course, officer. Everything is recorded right here," he said, tapping the body cam on his chest. "I'm a delivery driver. This is the correct address. I have the name on the package." She didn't recognize me, and instead of asking questions, she called the police. The other officer, a younger man named Officer Lee, looked between Marcus and Ms. Reynolds, already sensing that something wasn't adding up. "Do you have the footage?" Lee asked. Without hesitation, Marcus pulled out his phone, synced it to his body cam, and began playing the footage. The officers huddled around to watch the screen. It showed Marcus arriving at the house, stepping calmly out of the truck, walking up to the door. Ms. Reynolds appeared, yelling, accusing, threatening. Marcus remained composed, never raising his voice, never stepping out of line. Every second of the video showed a man doing his job and a woman escalating the situation for no reason. After just a minute of footage, the mood shifted entirely. The officers glanced at each other. Officer Diaz turned back to Ms. Reynolds, eyebrows raised. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "based on what we just saw, this man never threatened you. He didn't force his way in. He didn't do anything wrong." Ms. Reynolds looked stunned. She blinked rapidly, her mouth slightly open. No, you don't understand," she stammered. "He was just standing there. He looked suspicious. I didn't feel safe. I have a right to protect my home." But the officers weren't buying it. "Feeling uncomfortable isn't the same as being in danger," Officer Lee replied. "This man was clearly doing his job. You made a serious accusation." Ms. Reynolds tried to recover, her tone shifting from fear to frustration. "Well, I didn't know. I thought he was lying. I mean, you can't be too careful these days." Marcus didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The truth had already spoken. Officer Diaz nodded toward Marcus. "Sir, you're clear to complete your delivery. Thank you for your patience." Then he turned back to Ms. Reynolds. "And ma'am, we need to talk about the consequences of filing a false police report. This could have gone very differently if this man wasn't recording." Ms. Reynolds froze. Her face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The neighbors who had been watching from across the street? Some were filming. Others were shaking their heads. One woman even called out, "Shame on you!" Marcus nodded at the officers, stepped up to the door, placed the package down gently, and turned to walk back toward his truck, his dignity intact, his head held high. And as he climbed into the driver's seat, he knew something had changed. Not just for him, but for everyone who might have been in his shoes without a camera, without proof, and without justice. That night, after finishing his shift, Marcus sat alone in his small apartment, replaying the day in his head. He could have let it go, could have moved on and chalked it up as just another ugly encounter in a world that too often turns a blind eye. But he knew this was bigger than him. So he made a decision, not out of revenge, not to shame anyone, but to shine a light on what too many people still didn't believe happened in neighborhoods like that. He uploaded the body cam footage to social media with a simple caption. "This is what some of us deal with just doing our jobs." He blurred Ms. Reynolds' face. He didn't mention her name. No doxing, no hate campaign, just the truth, raw, honest, and undeniable. And the internet? It listened. Within hours, the video exploded. It hit 1 million views by sunrise. By the next day, it had 10 million. It was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. The comments poured in, thousands every hour. He handled it with pure class. This is what black men go through every day. Disrespected, accused, just for existing. Thank God he had that camera. Imagine if he didn't. This could have ended so differently. The story didn't stop with the video. News outlets picked it up. Local reporters called Marcus for interviews. Soon he was sitting down with anchors on morning shows, calmly explaining what happened, his voice measured and sincere. "I didn't post the video to attack her," he said on one broadcast. "I posted it because people need to understand this is real, and it happens every day." Podcasts started inviting him to speak. Activists, educators, even fellow delivery drivers reached out. Some shared similar stories. Some just said thank you. He became a voice, not by choice, but by example. Then something surprising happened. Celebrities began sharing the footage. Big names, actors, athletes, influencers, posted clips of the video along with messages of support. Some even reached out privately, offering to help however they could. The message was clear. Marcus didn't just stand his ground. He stood up for thousands of others. But while the internet rallied behind him, things on Ms. Reynolds' side were falling apart. As the pressure mounted, she deleted all of her social media accounts. No more posts, no comments, no explanations. Gone. Later, someone close to the situation revealed the truth. The package had been ordered by her teenage son. He had no idea what happened outside until he saw the video online, until he saw the way his mother had treated the man delivering his order. Sources said he was devastated and embarrassed. He even reached out to Marcus through a private message, apologizing for what happened. Marcus didn't respond publicly, but he didn't need to. His silence said enough. He'd already spoken, with grace, with evidence, and with restraint in a world full of instant outrage and loud reactions. Marcus had won with quiet dignity. And now, millions had seen what calm courage looked like in the face of blind prejudice. When reporters asked Marcus how he managed to stay so composed, how he handled such blatant disrespect with such calm, he didn't hesitate. He simply said, "I've learned that silence and proof speak louder than anger. I didn't need to fight. The truth was on my side." It wasn't the dramatic answer some might have expected, but it was real, and it struck a chord with millions. Marcus's story became more than just a viral moment. It became a wake-up call, a message about dignity, racial profiling, and the quiet power of composure in a world that too often expects people to explode. 4. Many, he was more than a delivery driver. He was a symbol of strength, patience, and professionalism under pressure. But what happened next surprised even Marcus. Across town, a local community group that had seen the video decided it was time to act. They launched a brand new program designed to educate homeowners about implicit bias and racial assumptions. Workshops were offered free of charge, aimed at helping people recognize and unlearn their unconscious prejudices. The program was called Open the Door, Seeing People, Not Stereotypes. And guess who they invited to speak at the very first event? Marcus. He walked in wearing the same uniform he wore that day, body cam clipped to his chest. Not because he needed to, but because it reminded everyone just how normal that day was. He wasn't a hero chasing glory. He was a man simply doing his job, and now he was helping change minds. At the same time, Marcus's employer, the courier company, announced his promotion. In an official statement, they called him a symbol of professionalism, calm under fire, and integrity in action. They didn't just give him a new title. They asked him to lead internal diversity and safety training for new drivers. His story became part of the company's training manual, used across the country to prepare drivers for real-world scenarios, and how to protect themselves, both physically and legally. But perhaps the most powerful change came from ordinary people. People who had never spoken up before, who had never experienced racism, or never believed it was that serious, suddenly found themselves looking at the world differently. They talked to their kids about respect. They talked to their neighbors about bias. Some even confronted uncomfortable truths about their own. Assumptions. Thousands of comments poured in, not just saying, "This is wrong," but asking, "How can I do better?" And through it all, Marcus remained humble. He didn't bask in fame. He didn't chase interviews or followers. He just kept delivering packages. Yes, but also perspective. He reminded the world that you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to lash out to be strong. Sometimes, the most powerful protest is poise. Marcus never wanted the spotlight. But when the world turned its eyes on him, he showed them grace in the face of ignorance. And in doing so, he changed. More than just a single moment, he started a movement. And if you want more powerful real-life stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.